Welcome to Basins and Beer with ESA Analytics. I'm Blue Spikes. Today I'm going to be talking about the Eagleford region in Texas, and I'll be drinking a Dale's American Pale Ale. If you've ever been to Colorado, you've probably seen some of the different stores or different restaurants around, and they have a big brewery here. I've been to the brewery a few times, so I have tried this beer before, but it's always worth a sip. So I'm going to enjoy that one tonight, and I hope you'll join me. Yeah, it is a really good beer. By the way, it's a 6.5% beer and an IBU of 65. I've learned as I drink different types of beers, those numbers are pretty important if you are going to explore different beers. You should pay attention to those numbers. So getting into the region here, it's the Eagleford. It has over 100,000 wells, so it does take a few seconds to load. If you are used to working with these types of data sets and you have a big Eagleford project, you can compare how fast this loads compared to your project. There it is. It's already loaded. Open up the map. Actually, before I turn on the dots here, let me show you where the Eagleford is. So it's down here in southeast Texas. It's just to the southeast of San Antonio and to the northwest of Houston. So it's this yellow region here. I'll turn on the dots so it sort of outlines the region, give you a better sense. I can go ahead and turn that off. Another thing I might want to represent here is how many rigs are drilling in this area right now. So let's turn that off so we can see it a little better. So there are 35 rigs drilling down here. So it is a very active area with a lot of wells, and I don't see that ending anytime soon. There's still a lot of acreage to drill. It is a mature basin, but still I think we're going to see drilling here for a long time. So let's turn that off and turn the dots back on, and let's color by formation. I think it's important to get the lay of the land, and I think looking at formation is kind of the first basic thing to understand about a different region when you're getting into it. So I'm going to zoom in here just to give you a little more to look at with the scatter plot, and then zoom into the top formations. So the Eagleford is the primary target in the Eagleford region, so it's the Eagleford Shale play, and there are a few other targets like the Austin, the Olmos, the Navarro, Edwards, so there, Buda even, Wilcox. There are other targets, but most people down there are targeting Eagleford or Austin Chalk. Getting into direction so you can understand whether people are drilling verticals or horizontal wells and what the distribution of the different direction types looks like. So the red is your horizontal wells, the purple is vertical wells. You can see there are more verticals than anything else, and that's kind of the standard for most regions in the U.S. You can also see there's a distinct area where most of the horizontal wells are. The verticals are everywhere, but the horizontals are sort of limited to this part of the basin. So let's kind of see if we can figure out a little bit of why that is. It has a lot to do with where the oil is and where the gas is. And this GOR, the gas-oil ratio, is something that will help us understand where people are targeting gas and where they're targeting oil. Most wells produce both, but it's in different proportions. So if a well has a lot of gas, you're going to see this kind of coloring. You're going to see, your reds and your greens and your yellows. If it's mostly oil, you're going to see these blues. So you can see, in fact, the areas that had, most of the areas with the horizontals have oil as the target. This area is a bit of an exception. There's a lot of gas, and there's still quite a few horizontal wells down here. The other thing that's kind of nice to look at, and I don't think I've shown this in any of the other presentations, is the faults. So usually faults outline and delineate your region or your basin. And it's no exception with this particular region. So if I turn on the region again, and I turn off the well spots, you can see this a little more clearly, that the faults, in fact, sort of delineate sort of the middle of the basin and the edge of the basin. And that's important. I mean, the faults help to create pathways for oil and gas to collect and travel through the rock, and it gives you an idea of the principal stresses involved. The different fractures tell you a lot about the orientation of the stresses so that you know which direction you should drill. So with that in mind, I'm going to show you well, actually, before I do that, I'm going to show you one more thing. I'm going to show you the depth structure of the primary formation here, which is the Eagleford. So I want to show the depth before I get into the orientation of the wells. It's just because by the time I get to the orientation of the wells, I've already filtered down to horizontal, so it's a little more natural to do this. So the Eagleford, if I turn this on, we're going to see the depth of the Eagleford formation plotted with the faulting. So you can see the shallower Eagleford is up here in the blue, and as you go southeast, it gets deeper. So as you go towards the ocean, it gets deeper. And so this is why this really isn't a basin. We call it a region, or you can call it a shale play, because it's not really a bowl shape. So anyway, that's what's kind of unique about this southeast part of Texas. These regions are more linear in this way, and you only see one half of it. You don't see the other half of the actual basin. So now I want to filter down to horizontal wells. So I'll just take a few seconds, and now I'll turn on the surveys. Because what this is going to show you is just how the wells typically are oriented with the geologic stresses in mind. And so you can see they're trying to be perpendicular to the stresses that created, so you can really kind of map this out. It really brings out the pattern that you want to see. So I haven't shown this in any of the other basins, but it's just kind of a cool thing that if you're trying to understand why people are drilling where they're drilling, why they're drilling that direction, this is one thing to look at. Now, it's not always the case. Sometimes it's just because their available acreage has sort of an odd shape and they're trying to maximize it, so they really can't factor in these stresses. And I think that's what you're seeing in this area, just kind of a mishmash of different directions, and I'm sure that has to do with just the land parcels that they were able to, and the mineral rights they were able to attain, and they had to maximize that. But generally speaking, with these mature basins, you can see that they do try to factor in these geologic stresses. Let's look at oil 1 year, so we can just get a quick look at what production looks like here. And I always like to use oil 1 year if I can. It's a good measure of that you can use sort of apples to apples with each well, because you're seeing how each well performed up to 1 year. And so, of course, if you're comparing a well that's been drilling or been producing for 10 years, it's going to have produced more than a well that's only produced for one. So if you can look at them at exactly that 1 year mark, you can really get a sense in terms of how they compare. And then I like to normalize it by foot or by length. That allows you to not only look at a similar time frame, but you're also looking at, if it's a 3 mile lateral versus a 1 mile lateral, you'd expect the 3 mile lateral to produce more. But what does it produce per foot? So to me, this is the best way to drill down and get apples to apples, looking at different time frames, looking at different length of wells, and trying to say, okay, I want to compare kind of the same thing and remove as many variables as possible. So this is how I like to do it. Oil 1 year, normalized by foot. And so this is what you get. You see the red is your highest oil per foot. So this is the acreage you want to be in if you can get it. And then you can see it starts to drop off as you get a little further to the northwest in all of these directions. So they drill these wells and they figure out, okay, this isn't producing as well, so you don't see too many more wells out there because they're not productive, they're not economical. So, but right here is really the heart of the basin. And then in this area, you also have really good production as well. And then the last thing I want to show you is the subsurface. Now, this is a view that we haven't gotten into in the other talks just because there's always so much to talk about, and I feel like these videos can get a little long, so I haven't wanted to get too deep into the subsurface, but I think this is a good opportunity to do that. I can use the table to filter down to a specific well, and then I can focus on that well. And so what the program's going to do by focusing is it's going to gather the information for the well that I focused on and all of the surrounding wells so that I can see all of them together in the subsurface. Okay, and it doesn't take very long, and this is a very complicated area with a lot of wells. You'll see once it loads up here. And I'll go ahead and get rid of the map in the sidebar. Okay, so this gives us a nice view of everything. So all three of these are subsurface views. And now I'll go back to formation and color by that so that these dots have a little more meaning. Right now they were still colored by oil per foot. So that didn't make a lot of sense in the subsurface. So this is what you get. So kind of zoom in a little bit here, get things a little oriented a little better. There's this one top that's pretty funky here. So this probably only has like 1 or 2 points. This is the Eagle Ford 2, because most of these wells are targeting the Eagle Ford. They never get down to the Eagle Ford 2, so that was not a well-constrained top. So I can just turn that off. And this is a gun barrel. So what these views represent, this top view is, we call it a gun barrel, and that's as if you're looking down the wells with this orientation. This side view, or we call it a geosteering view, is as if you're looking along your focus well, which is this white one here. It's as if you're looking along the side of that well. And then, of course, the 3D cube, you can spin it around, you can look at the orientation. And if you want to, you can turn on different formations and sort of see what the grids look like in 3D. So another thing that's kind of nice, you can zoom in if you want to get a little bit of a vertical exaggeration, and basically you're just clipping the top part of the well so that you can really focus on the lateral part. And it just really gives an amazing view very quickly, and because the program selects the wells for you, you decide which well you want to focus on, and it'll find the neighboring wells. And that gives you spacing, so you can click on this, you can click on one well and you can see how far it is from every well, and so these are in feet, both vertical and horizontal. You can turn that off, and you should be able to do the same thing with any one of these wells. Turn that off here. Well, let's just leave that on. So that's the main story I wanted to tell. I wanted to let you see how quick and easy it is to get into the entire region, then to drill down to a subset of wells, and then if you even want to just drill down to the one well you're looking at, you can just boil it down to that one well. So you can be as specific as you want with this application. I'm trying with these videos to give you a sense, like an overview of the region itself, so you can learn something about the region. But really, I'm trying to teach people how to use this application, and that will enable you to drill down yourself and really figure out what you want to figure out. So that's all for tonight. Till next time, cheers.